Queen Elizabeth II, who achieved a lifetime of service and put duty above all, has died at the age of 96. Her reign historic, the longest-serving monarch in British history. For most, the only queen they've ever known. Crowds gathering at the gates of Buckingham Palace to mourn her loss, laying flowers, sharing their sentiments. The Queen passed peacefully at her summer home in Scotland. Recently marking 70 years as Queen with her Platinum Jubilee, Queen Elizabeth reigned in a modern world without compromising tradition, becoming the most traveled head of state, meeting with 15 prime ministers, 13 American presidents, a symbol of steadfastness in an age of unprecedented change.
That my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and to the service of our great imperial family.
By her side for nearly her entire reign, her husband, Prince Philip. The two sharing a love story that spanned more than 80 years until his death just a year ago. Tonight, a look back at a marriage that became a significant part of the monarchy.
He has quite simply been my strength and stay all these years. And I and his whole family, and this and many other countries, owe him a debt greater than he would ever claim, or we shall ever know.
Emotion and memories are pouring in from around the world, from world leaders to musicians. And now a new rule begins. The Prince of Wales ascending to the throne. Charles is now King Charles III in the wake of his beloved mother's death, marking a new era. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thank you so much for joining us. She was the grandmother of a nation and to much of the world known simply as the Queen, a global symbol of stability for 7 decades. Queen Elizabeth II once said, "Grief is the price we pay for love." And tonight, the world is grieving, mourning the passing of Great Britain's beloved Queen, the longest reigning monarch of America's closest ally. The shocking news came this afternoon as the royal family shared this photo announcing the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral Castle, where she had been spending the summer. Hours earlier, doctors had reported that they were concerned about Her Majesty's health, and family members then rushed to Balmoral to be with the Queen. All of this while nervous crowds gathered at London's Buckingham Palace. A vigil then took place in the rain, those there hoping for the best but fearing the worst. And then came that solemn ritual, a notice posted on the palace gate, all alerting the world of the passing of the Queen. Just 48 hours earlier, the Queen completed what would be her final official duty when she welcomed new Prime Minister Liz Truss with a smile. The Queen's more than 70-year reign began in 1952, at the time Winston Churchill was Prime Minister. He once remarked all the film people in the world, if they had scoured the globe, could not have found anyone so suited to the part. During the Queen's reign, a total of 15 prime ministers served, 14 U.S. presidents, 7 popes. A short time before her death, the gray skies and the heavens above Buckingham Palace broke just long enough to make way for a rainbow. The Queen's passing begins days of tributes, and we'll bring them all to you here on ABC News Live. We begin our team coverage tonight with Maggie Ruley, who reports from Balmoral.
Tonight, the United Kingdom and the world mourning the loss of one of the most celebrated and revered women of our age, Queen Elizabeth II, passing away peacefully today at 96. She was said to be comfortable, surrounded by family at her beloved Balmoral estate in Scotland. The palace releasing a statement from the new king, now His Majesty Charles III. The death of my beloved mother, Her Majesty the Queen, is a moment of the greatest sadness for me and all members of my family. We mourn profoundly the passing of a cherished sovereign and a much-loved mother. I know her loss will be deeply felt throughout the country, the realms, and the Commonwealth, and by countless people around the world. During this period of mourning and change, my family and I will be comforted and sustained by our knowledge of the respect and deep affection in which the Queen was so widely held. Somber crowds gathering outside Buckingham Palace, leaving flowers at the gates. The notice posted, the flag lowered to half-staff. And as Britain paused, rainbows stretching across the sky.
A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Anchors on British television delivering the news.
The Queen passed away earlier today with her family by her side.
Pilots even alerting passengers in flight. This morning, hours of uncertainty after that rare detailed statement from the palace. The Queen's doctors, concerned for Her Majesty's health, recommended she remain under medical supervision. Her family racing to their matriarch's side, Charles arriving first by helicopter. Other members of the royal family flying into a foggy Aberdeen airport in Scotland. Prince William looking solemn, walking onto the tarmac. Driving Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, and wife Sophie, a grandson, sons, and daughter-in-law in grief. Their convoy seen speeding through the estate gates. Prince Harry traveling to Balmoral alone, arriving after the official announcement had been made. Both William and Harry without their wives. As shockwaves reverberated around the kingdom.
She was somebody I think that we'll never see again. I think a lot of people are really going to be sad, but also they'll be celebrating an amazing life. An amazing public servant.
Just 48 hours ago, these last images of the Queen, inviting Great Britain's new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, to form a government. Despite the decline in her health, still performing her constitutional responsibility. And still with that iconic twinkle in her eye. It was immediately after that event that doctors worried about her condition. The Queen celebrating 70 years on the throne this past summer. Her son Charles, now the King, expressing gratitude on behalf of the British people to his mother, the Queen.
Your Majesty, Mummy, on behalf of us all, I wanted to pay my own tribute to your lifetime of selfless service.
Tonight, the British people again thanking their Queen. For 80% of the kingdom, the only monarch they've ever known.
The world knows those lyrics so well. God Save the Queen. Maggie Rulli joins us now outside of Balmoral Castle in Scotland. And Maggie, walk us through what happens next for the royal family.
Hey, Lindsay. Oh, this is a name we're going to have to get used to because the palace has officially announced the new king will go by King Charles III. And we're hearing to expect the king to travel to London to address the nation. This will be the first speech following the death of his mother. Now, after 10 days of national mourning, we do expect her funeral to take place in Westminster Abbey. And Lindsay, those 10 days of mourning are really a chance for the British public. So many of who we've seen here at Balmoral and across the UK already today to pay their respects and to honor the legacy of Queen Elizabeth. Lindsay.
All right, Maggie Rulli, our thanks to you for your reporting all day. Now to the outpouring of emotion across the United Kingdom and around the world. The news hitting so many so hard. James Longman reports from Buckingham Palace tonight.
Tonight, a nation stunned by the loss of their beloved Queen.
Shocked. I can't believe it. I'm gutted. Absolutely gutted.
New Prime Minister Liz Truss coming before the cameras to address the British people.
Queen Elizabeth II was the rock on which modern Britain was built.
And as the news spread, those crowds outside Buckingham Palace swelling.
I was just compelled to come here. She just means so much to this country.
It was the day this country expected, but has long dreaded.
You kind of always knew it was coming, but when it happens, it's just sad.
Around the world tonight, tributes to Elizabeth, from Tel Aviv to California to Washington, D.C., where mourners left flowers at the British Embassy.
I feel like everyone will feel this loss.
Former President Trump saying the Queen will always be remembered for her faithfulness to her country and her unwavering devotion to her fellow countrymen and women. Former President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama saying the Queen meant a great deal to us. We were struck by her warmth, the way she put people at ease, and how she brought her considerable humour and charm to moments of great pomp and circumstance. Queen Elizabeth visited Canada, part of the British Commonwealth, 22 times, more than any other country in the world. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau saying his country is mourning.
She was one of my favourite people in the world, and I will miss her so.
Quite a sentiment there shared by Prime Minister Trudeau. James Longman joins us now from Buckingham Palace. James, so many people never had a chance to meet the Queen, but they feel like they know her. Describe the mood where you are and also how you're feeling tonight.
Well, Lindsay, I think I'd say quietly contemplative. I got here about half an hour ago, and there are still hundreds and hundreds of people out here tonight in Buckingham Palace. We're not far off midnight here tonight in London, and people just feel they've got to be here. You know, obviously the vast majority of people never met her, but they all knew her. They all felt like they knew her, and that's what we're seeing here tonight. They also want to catch a glimpse of that proclamation which was put on the gates here tonight, saying that very simply that she had died at Balmoral and that the King and the Queen Consort will come down to London tomorrow. It was so simple. And it's exactly, I think it sort of says everything you need to know about her. It's what she would have wanted. We're going to see so much celebration, so much mourning over the next few days, but she would have loved that simplicity. I've got to tell you also, I was on a plane when this news broke. I was on a plane that didn't have any Wi-Fi, so I didn't know that it had happened. And I landed, and as soon as I landed, this kind of ripple went down the plane, mostly Americans, coming back from the United States, and it was all anyone could talk about. Everyone all around the world feels like they know the Queen. And for me personally, it feels as though, I mean, it's like a grandparent almost. It is like someone who has always been there, but also it's what she represented. It's the generation she represents, a generation of people for whom it wasn't about them, it was always about you. It was about the greater cause. She didn't want the spotlight on her necessarily, even though she was the most recognisable woman in the world. So I think for me it's really that. In this modern age of celebrity, of the obsession with self, Queen Elizabeth was all about the other. And I think that's what died today. That's how I feel about it. And it's tremendously sad. But what we'll see over the next few days, I think, is going to be an enormous outpouring of love from this nation that needs it right now. Right? Britain is in an economic crisis at the end of this year. Winter, you know, energy bills are exploding. And I think this is a sad time, but I think we're going to see a huge outpouring of love for this woman that so many people in this country are going to miss. Lindsay.
Being all about the other and not oneself. What a legacy. James Longman, our thanks to you. Over the next few days, the palace says there will be several opportunities for the public to mourn, and we're expecting politicians and dignitaries from around the world to arrive in London for the Queen's funeral services. Joining us now with some insight looking forward is Victoria Murphy, an ABC News Royals contributor. Victoria, thanks so much for joining us. Of course, there's a national mourning period. The Queen will lie in state, and then a funeral will be held. But at this moment, her body remains at Balmoral. What can we expect to see in these next few days?
Hi there. Yes. Well, what we're going to see over the next few days is a very well-orchestrated plan swing into action. This is obviously something that, while there is a huge amount of shock here today, and we're never really fully prepared for the feeling of this happening, despite having been prepared for the logistics. But there have been plans in place for a very long time for this event, and we're going to see that swing into action over the course of the next 10 days, culminating, of course, in a state funeral at Westminster Abbey conducted by the Archbishop of Canterbury. I think we're going to see two things unfold, really, over the next few days. And what we're seeing is simultaneously this mourning, this honouring the reign that has ended, the woman, the incredible woman who is no longer with us, but also propelling us into the future. We are going to see a very visible new king. We are now in the reign of King Charles III, and that is going to be very apparent as he now makes addresses and travels around the United Kingdom. So we are going to see lots of activity happening, which is honouring the old and marking the new.
And Prince Charles, as you said, now king, taking on the new role while mourning his mother at the same time, who not only raised him, but helped to raise his sons after the death of Princess Diana. How would you describe their relationship and what his role will be like in the next days of mourning?
I think that's a very interesting point, because we have dual things going on. We have a family who is grieving. This is the death of a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, and there are very strong personal feelings involved here, as there would be with every family. But at this time as well, the family is, I think, also acutely aware of the roles that they have on the public stage and the fact that the eyes of the world are now on them. And Prince Charles has been preparing, not Prince Charles, King Charles. It's going to take time to get used to saying that. I think when I had a statement through today from the new king, it felt so strange, because we have had a queen for so long, and now we are saying King Charles. He has been preparing for this moment for his whole life. We have seen him in action, really, over the past, particularly the past year, when the Queen has been unable to carry out many of the functions of head of state. He has been increasingly stepping in for her. So in many ways, I think a lot of it will not necessarily feel jarring, and I think that is what the monarchy has wanted, that is what they have been planning for. But certainly it will take time, I think, to get used to having a king, to get used to our national anthem changing, lots of things that will change, our stamps, our coins, and it will be very different from what we have always known.
All of this, of course, will be underscored by issues within the family, as you kind of touched on there, with Prince Harry and Meghan's departure as senior royals, as well as the sexual assault allegations against Prince Andrew. How will the palace try to stop those things from becoming a distraction? And will that limit, or do you think that they'll try and limit their exposure as they did for the Queen's Jubilee?
Interesting question. I think at the moment it feels very much like the focus is just so much on the Queen and also on the new king. I think when it comes to family feuds and dramas, I think they'll be very keen to to put those things very much to one side. We know that Prince Harry travelled to Balmoral today. This is a family who is together. The Queen was probably the only person who really could unite them, because even as they left the royal family, Prince Harry and Meghan were still speaking very fondly of the Queen and making it known that they had a huge amount of respect for her. And so in her death, they have come together. I think they'll be very keen not to focus on any negativity and drama, and I think they'll be keen for the public not to do that as well. When it comes to Prince Andrew, I think that he will be at events. I think that's what we would expect to see. But yes, I mean, a family at the moment very much united in grief, and it sort of feels that that is the mood at the moment, the overwhelming mood.
And of course, there is a global outpouring of support. So many respected and loved her. But can you describe just how much she meant to the British people?
It is quite a difficult thing to put into words, because she's the only queen that most of us have ever known. And I think one of the things that was so central to her reign was that it was so important to her to go out into communities. Yes, she had this grand role on the world stage where she carried out all the official functions of head of state, but for her, really, the job was about going out into communities and seeing people, meeting the public, going into their workplaces, their homes, their schools, their community centres, and she did that day in, day out, right up into the point when she really couldn't manage it anymore. And I think that's why so many people feel that they have a connection with her, and why we're seeing so many people come down here tonight, because people felt that they knew her, they felt that she was really there for them.
And just lastly, you know so much about the Queen. How do you think that she'll be remembered as a person and not just a monarch?
I mean, of course, the outstanding thing about her reign is the fact that it was so record-breaking, but I think she was a very unique person. She had this, through her character, through the way that she conducted herself, she had this incredible diplomatic ability, and this incredible ability, I think, to very gently to guide and to lead, but in a very unassuming way. The Duchess of Cambridge once described her as a gentle guidance, and I think that's what we saw. I think that she understood the importance of creating space for allow people to allow people to tell their stories, to allow her family members to carve out their own roles. So I think the fact that she was able to lead, but also to create space for other people to carry out their roles and for the public to tell their stories, I think there was an incredible capacity.
Victoria Murphy, we thank you so much. Just tremendous reporting all day.
Thank you so much.
Queen for more than half a century, Elizabeth II reigned over a rapidly changing country. The last days of a once vast empire, weathering scandals that would threaten the future of the monarchy. Through it all, she ruled with a steady hand and a devotion to the British people. That affection was mutual, a connection captured so many times. That is why today Great Britain is a nation in mourning. ABC's Terry Moran takes a look back at her life.
She was simply, to millions around the world, the Queen. The most famous woman of her time, from her coronation in 1953 to the outpouring of affection on her Diamond Jubilee marking 60 years on the throne. So much history, so many indelible moments. Decade after decade, from the Cold War to the computer age, what an extraordinary reign. And for all those years, through all that history, duty is what defined this remarkable woman. She was born in 1926, a little princess, Lilibet her family called her, who was never expected to become queen until her uncle, the Playboy King Edward VIII, abdicated the throne to marry an American divorcee, and her father then became King George VI. The young Elizabeth was suddenly next in line for the throne.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and to the service of our great imperial family.
During World War II, the princess did her duty. She was a driver and mechanic on the home front, and she fell in love in those years, a handsome prince, swashbuckling Navy Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten.
Take thee, Philip.
To my wedded husband.
To my wedded husband.
They married in 1947. 5 years later, when King George died, Lilibet became Queen Elizabeth II. Her coronation was an international sensation. But the British Empire Elizabeth inherited was falling apart, all the colonies becoming independent nations. So she helped to create a new realm dubbed the British Commonwealth.
When we were young, it was very easy to take our grandmother for granted. She was just a grandmother to us. I've actually really learned to sort of understand and accept the huge deal that she is around the world.
Elizabeth traveled the world, more than 250 overseas trips, showing how the British monarch could change with the times and shape them, even as she raised 4 children, the most famous working mum in the world.
She was a young woman in a man's world, carving her own way through life and through a job that she, like any of us, don't necessarily have all the preparations you'd like. I think she's done amazingly well.
Queen Elizabeth reigned through over a dozen American presidents and just as many British prime ministers. Her first was the formidable Winston Churchill, proving a savvy stateswoman and a constant leader on the world stage. The years brought their ups and downs. The wedding of Prince Charles and Diana seemed to be a highlight, and Elizabeth watched as her daughter-in-law captivated the world in the 1980s. But when that marriage collapsed so scandalously, many Britons began to doubt the relevancy of the monarchy itself. When Diana was killed in a car crash in Paris, Elizabeth stayed in Scotland with her family. As waves of grief rolled over Britain, the Queen was seen as unsympathetic, and public anger at the royal family reached a fever pitch. And then she returned and joined her people in mourning.
What I say to you now, as your Queen and as a grandmother, I say from my heart. First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional and gifted human being.
As monarch, Elizabeth maintained tradition and yet moved just enough with the times.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Your Majesty.
Who can forget her appearance alongside 007 Daniel Craig at the London Olympics? It was a rare moment of public fun from a woman who prized dignity, but her family knew a different side.
If you do ever have problems, you can share them with her and she will listen and she will try and help. But otherwise, she sort of lets you get on with your own life and carve your own path.
Perhaps one of Elizabeth's proudest moments, Prince William's marriage to Kate Middleton in 2011, a wedding that united the British people and breathed fresh life into the monarchy. 2 years later, the Queen would welcome the newest heir to the throne, Prince George, and later Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis.
She's a remarkably energetic and dedicated guiding force for her family. And I'm so glad that my children are having the chance to get to know the Queen.
In 2015, Elizabeth became the longest-serving monarch in British history, passing her great-grandmother, Queen Victoria. A long life, a long reign. She watched with pride as the next generation celebrated milestones, and she endured the disgrace of her son Andrew's public scandals that saw the Queen strip him of his military affiliations, royal patronages, and the title of His Royal Highness. Her reign, which was born out of her uncle's abdication, saw her grandson Prince Harry also step away from royal life.
The decision that I have made for my wife and I to step back is not one I made lightly. It was so many months of talks after so many years of challenges. And I know I haven't always gotten it right, but as far as this goes, there really was no other option.
One biographer called her Elizabeth the Steadfast, her strength guiding her people through the COVID-19 outbreak.
We should take comfort that while we may have more still to endure, better days will return.
We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. We will meet again.
Elizabeth's deep sense of duty above all, earning her a permanent place in the hearts of the British people. In 2021, she mourned her greatest loss, the rock of her own life, her husband, Prince Philip, her closest confidant and advisor. Their marriage was an enduring partnership, a sentiment she shared on their 50th wedding anniversary.
All too often, I fear Prince Philip has had to listen to me speaking. But he has quite simply been my strength and stay all these years.
73 years of marriage spent side by side, and at his funeral, the poignant images of the Queen, due to COVID protocols, seated alone. She will be remembered for a lifetime of unwavering service to her country. Perhaps Prince Charles put it best on the night of his mother's Diamond Jubilee.
As a nation, this is our opportunity to thank you and my father for always being there for us, for inspiring us with your selfless duty and service, and for making us proud to be British.
The Queen is dead. Long live the King.
Our thanks to Terry Moran for that. And we're still following other major headlines of the day. Record-shattering heat in the West reaching triple digits and fueling more than 70 large wildfires. And communities fearing for their lives during an hours-long deadly shooting rampage. The details about the suspect. But first, King Charles III, the new king. It's a title that has not existed in England for 7 decades. The ups and downs that have led to this moment. Despite the rain, a large crowd stood in front of Buckingham Palace tonight, singing God Save the Queen. Thousands have traveled there to pay their respects, gathering together to mourn the loss of Britain's longest-serving monarch. It's been 70 years since Britain's had a king, and no one has waited longer for it than the Queen's oldest son, Prince Charles, now King Charles III. He's lived his entire life under a microscope, his every move watched so closely, and now he finally makes his move to the throne. World News Tonight anchor David Muir has more on the newest British monarch.
The Prince of Wales is king after the longest royal apprenticeship in history.
He'll be the best prepared monarch we've ever had, having served so long as sort of tutelage under his mother.
Even to him, she was Your Majesty in public. But watch her face on her 92nd birthday.
Your Majesty, Mummy.
In 1952, when Charles was just 3, his mother became queen. His destiny was laid out before him. It was a difficult childhood for Charles. As a young queen, his mother put duty and service above all else.
One of the things he talks about is this memory of his mother coming to kiss him goodnight on the nursery floor, wearing the imperial state crown.
His mother broke with tradition, as we saw dramatized on The Crown.
Prince Charles was the first heir to the throne to be sent to school as opposed to being instructed by private tutors. He was sent away to the same school, I gather, that Prince Philip also attended, and he didn't have the easiest time of it at first.
In his 30s, the prince told Barbara Walters he struggled with certain subjects.
I think it's not too bad for people to know that the Prince of Wales can also fail in school, and they give him a failing grade.
Oh, yes. I failed my maths exam 3 times. I finally got it on the 4th attempt.
Prince of Wales became his title in 1969. But at the time, many knew him as a Playboy prince.
They tried to kind of create him as kind of a James Bond figure. He was referred to as Action Man, I think, in the 60s, as he flew planes or did helicopters or rode in jeeps or whatever he was doing.
In his early adulthood, he became a helicopter pilot, joined the Naval Air Squadron, and took command of a naval mine hunter.
And there were a long line of lovely young ladies who appeared to be potential spouses for him who did not make the final cut.
At 31, he proposed to his uncle's granddaughter, Amanda Knatchbull. She turned him down. He fell in love with Camilla Shand, but she married someone else while he was in the Navy.
Another 30 seconds, I think.
Finally, Lady Diana Spencer, the younger sister of a girl he had dated.
All of a sudden, this teacher, who was so young and so fresh, had that beautiful smile and an ingratiating manner. Suddenly we discovered that she was the apple of his eye, and before we knew it, they got engaged.
I remember thinking what a very jolly and amusing and attractive 16-year-old she was. And, I mean, great fun, and bouncy and full of life and everything. And I don't know what you thought of me.
Pretty amazing.
And I suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
Yes.
Everybody remembered that interview where they were asked if they were in love, and he said yes, whatever love is. And that tells you, I think, a little bit about maybe his upbringing. Whatever love is from a grown man who's just gotten engaged. It's not the note you want to go out and pick your informal china pattern with.
It's emerged that the Prince of Wales, the night before his wedding, really wasn't at all sure whether he was in love with Diana, and was actually almost convinced that he wasn't.
On that day in July 1981, 750 million people all over the world tuned in.
So long as you both shall live.
I will.
It looked as though Cinderella had gotten her prince.
How are you enjoying married life?
Highly recommend it.
I remember going to Australia with them. We were away for 6 weeks. And, I mean, that was the love tour. I mean, they were over each other like, you know, a rash. I mean, they used to look at each other like they wanted to rush off and rip the clothes off each other. They were that passionate. I mean, it was really, and very tactile, you know, touching.
A year later, an heir, and then a second son.
They're in very good form indeed. Bring us both an immense amount of happiness.
In this, their first interview, 1985 in Kensington Palace, music by William and Harry, and the royal couple still acting like newlyweds.
I suspect most husbands and wives find that they often have arguments.
But we don't.
No. But occasionally we do, because I mean,
No, we don't.
I go on longer sometimes.
Yes, but I'm faster.
There we are.
The thing that the British public will always be grateful for is the way she raised her sons, and the love and the affection and the touching and the caring that she imbued them with. They're never going to say whatever love is. They know what love is.
But as we all know, the fairy tale faded, and within 5 years it was clear the marriage had crumbled. Later, dueling interviews revealing that Camilla was still in the picture. Their foreign trips were now portraits of an unhappy relationship.
She was in touch with her feelings. If she was mad at her spouse, there were going to be indications of that in the photographs, and there were.
The funeral procession is on the south side of the park.
With Diana's sudden and tragic death just a year after their divorce, Charles was a single parent of 2 shattered boys.
They are coping extraordinarily well, but obviously Diana's loss and death has been an enormous loss as far as they're concerned.
As the years passed, Charles slowly introducing the other woman, Camilla, to the public.
Yes, it might have been an affair that rocked the monarchy, but it's endured and resulted in an incredibly happy marriage.
Through it all, Charles did hundreds of royal engagements every year, which increased the Queen in her 90s. By 2016, attending 530 engagements at home and abroad in just 1 year. Duchess Kate on dating Prince William and meeting her future father-in-law.
I was quite nervous about meeting William's father, but no, he's very, very welcoming and very friendly. So yeah, it couldn't have gone easier really for me.
We've got a new member of our weather team tonight.
Watch this visit to the BBC studios in Scotland, noting some weather over the Queen's favourite home, Balmoral.
The potential for a few flurries over Balmoral. Who the hell wrote this script? As the afternoon goes on.
As Charles now prepares to ascend the throne, what does he do with it? Will it be more striking to us when it's held by a man that we've seen grow up as opposed to Queen Elizabeth? What are the qualities that the British monarchy represents? That's the question that Charles is going to now have to answer.
This man is an absolute gem, and we should put our hands together in this country we've got him, because he is, to my mind, he is the next king, no doubt about it. And people are saying, oh yeah, but he won't make a great king. Wait and see.
This grandfather, who has spent 7 decades waiting in the wings, finally will wear the crown.
Our thanks to David for that. There's still much more ahead on crime. A politician accused of stabbing a journalist to death. The motive, police say, led to the murder. New developments in the legal battle between the Justice Department and former President Donald Trump, plus celebrating the legacy of Queen Elizabeth. We take a look at her extraordinary life by the numbers. But first, our tweet of the day, another major loss. Bernard Shaw, trailblazer and the first chief anchor of CNN for 20 years. He distinguished himself during so many major news events, including the first Gulf War. He left us at 82 years old today. Welcome back, everyone. The world tonight is paying tribute to the life and legacy of the UK's longest-serving monarch. Here's a look at Queen Elizabeth by the numbers. She was born in 1926 in London. Elizabeth Alexandra Mary, the daughter of the Duke and Duchess of York, nicknamed Lilibet. She was 10 years old when her uncle abdicated the throne, making her father king and putting her first in line as heir. At 14, she made her first radio broadcast on the BBC during World War II and later trained as a military driver and mechanic in the war. In 1947, Elizabeth wedded Philip Mountbatten at Westminster Abbey. They were married more than 73 years before his death in 2021. She was 25 when her father died in 1952, and she became queen, officially coronated in June the next year. 15 British prime ministers served under Queen Elizabeth, starting with Winston Churchill and ending with Liz Truss, whom the Queen appointed during a meeting at Balmoral earlier this week, her final public appearance. She had 4 children, including her oldest son, Charles, now King Charles III, 8 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren. An animal lover and avid horseback rider, she had some 30 corgis over the course of her reign. She also traveled the world with more than 250 overseas trips to more than 100 nations. Earlier this summer, admirers at home and abroad celebrated her Platinum Jubilee, marking 70 years as queen. It was a remarkable 96 years, a life filled with milestones and always defined by duty. And we still have lots to get to here on Prime tonight. We'll have reactions to the Queen's passing from the White House to the world of entertainment, and a look at the decades-long love story of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. But first, a look at our top trending stories on abcnews.com.
The longest-serving monarch in British history has died. Queen Elizabeth II passing away at Balmoral Castle, her estate in Scotland, where she had been on summer break. The royal family, including her sons Prince Andrew and Prince Edward, rushing to her side, along with her grandsons Prince William and Prince Harry. The 96-year-old's death comes after she canceled a virtual meeting Wednesday. Her doctors, concerned about her health, advising her to rest. She was last seen in public Tuesday when she swore in UK's new Prime Minister, Liz Truss. Born on April 21st, 1926, Her Majesty was never expected to take the throne. That changed in 1936 when her father unexpectedly became King George VI after his older brother's abdication. Her father died in 1952 and the 25-year-old princess became queen. Today marks the end of the second Elizabethan age, the end of an extraordinary reign that spanned 7 decades and so much change.
The Justice Department plans to appeal a Florida judge's order that a special master review materials seized at former President Trump's estate.
While the appeal is heard, the Justice Department asked the judge to reconsider part of her ruling that blocked federal prosecutors from using the material as they build a case. The prosecutors want access to just over 100 classified documents. They said the government and the public are irreparably injured when a criminal investigation of matters involving risks to national security is enjoined.
Weeks after he was convicted of federal charges of contempt of Congress, Steve Bannon appearing in court again, facing state felony charges. The one-time top aide to former President Trump is now charged by New York prosecutors with 2 counts of money laundering, 3 counts of conspiracy, and 1 count of scheming to defraud, tied to his role in the We Build the Wall online fundraising campaign. The crowdfunding campaign raised $25 million to build a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. But prosecutors allege hundreds of thousands went toward personal expenses for Bannon and the other founders.
thousands of firefighters on the front lines battling multiple fires in the west, pushed by the sweltering heat wave. The deadly Fairview fire in Hemet, California, exploding, crews attacking the flames for the fourth day from both the ground and the sky. And the mosquito fire near Lake Tahoe, burning buildings to the ground, destroying over 5,000 acres. The fires fueled by bone-dry conditions during a time of record-breaking heat.
There are hopes that a Pacific Hurricane K working its way up the coast could bring cooler, wetter weather this weekend.
In Memphis, police capturing a man they say went on a deadly shooting spree, killing at least 4 people and injuring 3 others. Authorities identifying the suspect in custody as 19-year-old Ezekiel Kelly. The rampage spanning across 8 different crime scenes. The first deadly shooting just before 1 a.m. on Wednesday. Officers responding to the initial homicide but unable to identify a suspect. Then, Wednesday afternoon, police respond to another report of gunshot victims at 4:38 p.m. and 4:40 p.m. Just over an hour later, the suspect going live on Facebook, showing himself allegedly firing a gun, with 2 more shootings at 7:24 p.m. and 8:55 p.m.
A Las Vegas County official now in county jail, charged in connection with the murder of local investigative reporter Jeff Gehrman. Robert Tellis, the Clark County public administrator, arrested Wednesday following a standoff with police. Police say he had self-inflicted stab wounds and was seen here returning home before the arrest wearing a protective white suit. Authorities searching his home for hours Wednesday, towing a maroon GMC Yukon Denali, the same type of car spotted near the murder scene. Police say Gehrman was found dead outside of his home around 10:30 a.m. on Saturday after writing several articles critical of the public administrator's office.
Welcome back. In her lifetime, Queen Elizabeth met with 14 U.S. presidents, cementing the special relationship between her kingdom and America. ABC senior White House correspondent Mary Bruce joins us now. Mary, President Biden visited the British embassy to offer his condolences after issuing a statement on the Queen's passing. What was his message today?
Lindsay, the president today saying simply that she was more than a monarch, saying she defined an era. Biden saying she led with grace, an unwavering commitment to duty, and the incomparable power of her example. Biden himself met with her twice, most recently last June during his first trip overseas as president. And Biden today recalled her wit and kindness during that last visit. Tonight, the flags here at the White House have been lowered to half staff. Over at the Capitol, they are also lowered. They will remain that way in her honor until she's interred. But tonight, no word on whether the president will be attending her funeral. Lindsay.
Mary Bruce from the White House, our thanks to you.
Thank you.
From world leaders to well-known celebrities. In a tweet, Beatles star Paul McCartney said, "God bless Queen Elizabeth II. May she rest in peace. Long live the King." And frontman of the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger, tweeted, "For my whole life, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has always been there. In my childhood, I can recall watching her wedding highlights on TV. I remember her as a beautiful young lady to the much-beloved grandmother of the nation. My deepest sympathies are with the royal family." And a simple tweet from Paddington Bear himself, a thank you for everything. Throughout the decades, the Queen's reign has remained consistent, and constantly at her side has been her husband, Prince Philip. Married back in 1947, they've seen their fair share of triumph and tragedy, an incredible love story that spanned decades.
Queen Elizabeth's love life can be written in one line. She fell in love at age 13 with Prince Philip, royalty from Denmark and Greece, an 18-year-old cadet in the British Royal Navy with the war coming on.
They met several times during the war when she was still a teenager, and I think it's clear that she never had eyes for anyone else.
I think they must have had real attraction. It must have just been bam.
And over the course of the next few years, they exchanged letters, they wrote to each other regularly.
Her family was slightly alarmed, but much more alarmed were the court, who thought, penniless Greek prince. Oh, no, thank you.
Today is Victory in Europe Day.
When the war was over, Elizabeth had her own battle to fight. Philip proposed and she accepted, but she hadn't consulted with her parents, the king and queen. They were unconvinced. Philip seemed too outspoken, rough, had lots of German relatives, and that was difficult right after the war. Her father asked her to wait to see if her feelings changed.
It took about a year, but the Queen was determined, the future Queen. And she basically said to her father, look, I'm 21 now. this is the man I love. I'm devoted to him. I want to marry him.
She got her way and got her prince. Their wedding was close enough to wartime that she needed ration coupons to have her dress made. But no problem with the cake, 9 feet high, 4 tiers, decorated with monograms and coats of arms in sugar. And Philip took his place, slightly to one side of the throne.
Grandfather was, had a very successful career in the military or in the Navy. He gave it all up to do his job and to be there to support the Queen. It must have been quite difficult for him being in the sort of shadows and being the support.
As extraordinary as it was to have a woman in that position in the 1950s, it was almost unheard of for a man to give up his career for a woman and walk 2 steps behind.
As we saw in The Crown, Philip and Elizabeth, we imagine, had to resolve the peculiar nature of their relationship, particularly at a time when you would not assume a man would defer to a woman. But because she was the Queen and he was not the king, she was his ruler in addition to being his spouse.
Are you my wife or my queen?
I'm both.
I want to be married to my wife.
There's a famous quote by Prince Philip where when he met someone once at an engagement, this person said to him, "Oh, my wife is much more clever and important than I am." And Prince Philip replied, "Well, we have that problem in our household as well."
Known for his outspoken manner, Prince Philip told one biographer that the secret of their long-lasting marriage was he could make the Queen laugh. He wore a full uniform each year at the annual Trooping of the Color. That's him, and apparently could set her giggling with just one look.
Why do you love him? He makes me laugh. He makes me laugh. So if Prince Philip makes Queen Elizabeth laugh, rock on with your bad self.
By the way, if Philip was her true love, it's clear that she also lavished affection on her beloved corgis. They came into her life just about when Philip did. The original dog, Susan, was a gift for her 18th birthday, and Susan even came along on their honeymoon. After that, corgis were a part of the Queen's entourage for more than 7 decades. Through the years, 14 generations of descendants from Susan, plus others. If Philip wasn't there, some said that the Queen, a quieter person, would use those corgis as a conversation starter. It was clear she depended on her outspoken husband. In the days around their 50th wedding anniversary in 1997, each of them spoke.
The main lesson that we've learned is that tolerance is the one essential ingredient of any happy marriage. It may not be quite so important when things are going well, but it is absolutely vital when things get difficult. And you can take it from me that the Queen has the quality of tolerance and abundance.
He is someone who doesn't take easily to compliments, but he has quite simply been my strength and stay all these years. And I and his whole family, and this and many other countries, owe him a debt greater than he would ever claim, or we shall ever know.
Prince Philip stopped most public appearances in 2017 at the age of 96. He died just weeks short of his 100th birthday. They had been married for 73 years, in love for even longer. The Queen had never reigned without the prince at her side.
Our thanks to Amy for that. And before we go tonight, the image of the day. Just moments before the royal family officially announced the passing of the Queen, you see it right there, a pause in the London rain, revealing that perhaps symbolic rainbow over Buckingham Palace. And that is our show for this hour. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for full coverage of the life and legacy of Queen Elizabeth II. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Coming up in the next hour, celebrating the life of the United Kingdom's longest-serving monarch, a global influence that she held, and what we can expect as Britain enters a national period of mourning. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us tonight. We remember the life and legacy of Queen Elizabeth II, whose reign spanned 70 years, making her Britain's longest ruling monarch and the world's second longest monarch in all time. The 96-year-old died peacefully at her beloved summer home in Scotland. The Queen became a figure of stability at a time of turbulent change, her commitment to her duties steadfast even in her final days, as was her dedication to her family and her longtime love husband, Prince Philip, who passed last year. ABC News Live is remembering the Queen's lasting mark on her country and our world. As a leader, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, the head of state of Britain and the Commonwealth nations. We start off with Maggie Ruley in Scotland.
Tonight, the United Kingdom and the world mourning the loss of one of the most celebrated and revered women of our age, Queen Elizabeth II, passing away peacefully today at 96. She was said to be comfortable, surrounded by family at her beloved Balmoral estate in Scotland. The palace releasing a statement from the new king, now His Majesty Charles III. The death of my beloved mother, Her Majesty the Queen, is a moment of the greatest sadness for me and all members of my family. We mourn profoundly the passing of a cherished sovereign and a much-loved mother. I know her loss will be deeply felt throughout the country, the realms, and the Commonwealth, and by countless people around the world. During this period of mourning and change, my family and I will be comforted and sustained by our knowledge of the respect and deep affection in which the Queen was so widely held. Somber crowds gathering outside Buckingham Palace, leaving flowers at the gates. The notice posted, the flag lowered to half-staff. And as Britain paused, rainbows stretching across the sky.
A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Anchors on British television delivering the news.
The Queen passed away earlier today with her family by her side.
Pilots even alerting passengers in flight. This morning, hours of uncertainty after that rare detailed statement from the palace. The Queen's doctors, concerned for Her Majesty's health, recommended she remain under medical supervision. Her family racing to their matriarch's side, Charles arriving first by helicopter. Other members of the royal family flying into a foggy Aberdeen airport in Scotland. Prince William looking solemn, walking onto the tarmac. Driving Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, and wife Sophie, a grandson, sons, and daughter-in-law in grief. Their convoy seen speeding through the estate gates. Prince Harry traveling to Balmoral alone, arriving after the official announcement had been made. Both William and Harry without their wives. As shockwaves reverberated around the kingdom.
She was somebody I think that we'll never see again. I think a lot of people are really going to be sad, but also they'll be celebrating an amazing life. An amazing public servant.
Just 48 hours ago, these last images of the Queen, inviting Great Britain's new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, to form a government. Despite the decline in her health, still performing her constitutional responsibility. And still with that iconic twinkle in her eye. It was immediately after that event that doctors worried about her condition. The Queen celebrating 70 years on the throne this past summer. Her son Charles, now the King, expressing gratitude on behalf of the British people to his mother, the Queen.
Your Majesty, Mummy, on behalf of us all, I wanted to pay my own tribute to your lifetime of selfless service.
Tonight, the British people again thanking their Queen for 80% of the kingdom, the only monarch they've ever known.
Those lyrics known worldwide are thanks to Maggie. And as you might expect, there's an outpouring of emotion across the United Kingdom and really around the world. The news hitting so many so hard. James Longman reports in from Buckingham Palace tonight.
Tonight, a nation stunned by the loss of their beloved Queen.
Shocked. I can't believe it. I'm gutted. Absolutely gutted.
New Prime Minister Liz Truss coming before the cameras to address the British people.
Queen Elizabeth II was the rock on which modern Britain was built.
And as the news spread, those crowds outside Buckingham Palace swelling.
I was just compelled to come here. She just means so much to this country.
It was the day this country expected, but has long dreaded.
You kind of always knew it was coming, but when it happens, it's just sad.
Around the world tonight, tributes to Elizabeth, from Tel Aviv to California to Washington, D.C., where mourners left flowers at the British Embassy.
I feel like everyone will feel this loss.
Former President Trump saying the Queen will always be remembered for her faithfulness to her country and her unwavering devotion to her fellow countrymen and women. Former President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama saying the Queen meant a great deal to us. We were struck by her warmth, the way she put people at ease, and how she brought her considerable humour and charm to moments of great pomp and circumstance. Queen Elizabeth visited Canada, part of the British Commonwealth, 22 times, more than any other country in the world. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau saying his country is mourning.
She was one of my favourite people in the world, and I will miss her so.
Our thanks to James for that. For more on the Queen's legacy, we welcome ABC News Royals contributor Imogen Lloyd-Webber. Imogen, thank you so much for joining us. I know that it's certainly a trying day. You know, it's been kind of this unwritten rule that the Royals really stay out of the politics, essentially. But the Queen was very informed, very knowledgeable. She was interested. What kind of influence did she have on the UK government?
So the UK has a constitutional monarchy, so the Queen reigned but didn't rule. So everything is done in her name, which is why our new Prime Minister a couple of days ago had to go and meet the Queen, and the Queen asked her if she could form a government. So she is intrinsically involved in the state. She had these infamous red boxes, which she would read every single day, all these state papers. But she was not there to interfere. She was there to sign off on it, as it were. So really the Queen was woven into the fabric of British life, on banknotes, on stamps, on insignia, on people's helmets. It really is an extraordinary loss to the nation. She was there as this emblem of national unity, identity and pride. So this will be a seismic shift for the Brits over the next 10, 12 days and moving forward.
And in general, because we don't have a monarchy here in this country, and the kings and queens, it seems, though, for those in Britain, that she was more than a figurehead. Kind of just give us a sense of the meaning of the Queen there.
So the Queen reigned for 7 decades. She saw in that time 15 UK prime ministers and 14 US presidents. She's only our 40th monarch since 1066. So as a result, we have a sort of stability, as it were. So the politicians sort of get their hands dirty. The Queen is there to be above politics, that figurehead. And King Charles III now has big shoes to fill because she fulfilled her duty. She didn't interfere. She made sure that she kept up with the times, was never ahead of the times, because the monarchy is there to be stable, but was always that calm voice of reason. During COVID, she certainly became, on some levels, even more the grandmother to the nation. There was that very dramatic moment where Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister at the time, was being taken to hospital for COVID, and she addressed the nation, evoking World War II years, where, of course, she served during World War II. She was in the military. So it is a massive shock when you have this big grandmotherly figure that you think is never going to really leave. Although we have been being prepared for it over the years, it's still a shock when it happens.
And you talked about her duty. Kind of give us a sense of just how seriously she took her responsibility and her commitment. We saw her in the past few months really failing and at times absent, especially from the Jubilee, but still pushing through to make sure that she was present for some of those events, including just a few days ago with the transfer of power to Liz Truss.
Absolutely. She swore when she was 21 years old. She gave a very famous radio address, which we can all see on The Crown, where she says she'll devote her life, whether it's long or short, to her people, to the people of the UK, to the people of the Commonwealth. And that was incredibly important to her. That being said, as she grew older, she has subtly, because of course she was trying to prepare us for the post-Elizabethan age, even though it is going to be a massive jolt for us all.
You talked about how in recent years she kind of stepped back from all that travel, but prior to that, she was the most traveled head of state in history. Why were those visits? Why was all that travel so important to the Queen?
She would have met more people than anyone else living on Earth until this morning and until she passed. She was the world's most experienced diplomat. We have lost that soft power diplomacy. Was the longest-serving Western leader. She was someone who had an enormous amount of wisdom. She also kept her own counsel.
We also have been talking a lot about Balmoral Castle today,
Yes.
In Scotland, where she passed away, a place that was near and dear to her heart. Why was it such a significant location for her?
She loves Scotland. I think on some levels, one can see why she, as much as you choose to pass, she chose to pass there. It's somewhere the family adored. A lot of happy times with her husband, Prince Philip, who she sadly lost last year. And of course, she's been in mourning ever since then. Some wonderful times with her children, with the grandchildren, with the great-grandchildren. It's a very special place and it's a retreat. It's very interesting this evening that you've got members of the royal family who may not necessarily have been that close recently, all at Balmoral together, with this seismic shift that has just happened within their family personally. You've got Andrew there, Charles is there, obviously, now head of the family, and of course, William and Harry. And this really must be invoking for William and Harry, who were at Balmoral when Princess Diana suddenly died, that moment 25 years ago. So if there is a moment for these two brothers who, as we know, have been having a difficult relationship of late, can sit down and really talk, then we would think that this might be it.
To be a fly on the wall.
Indeed.
In Balmoral. Imogen, we thank you so much for just your expertise and being able to kind of give us the perspective and what this all means today. We thank you so much. ABC News Royal contributor Imogen Lloyd-Webber. Many politicians are among those remembering Queen Elizabeth and her reign. While delivering remarks for the Democratic National Committee tonight, President Biden took a moment to speak about her passing.
Before I begin, I want to say a few words about Queen Elizabeth. I just stopped by the British Embassy to sign the condolence book in her honor. I had the opportunity to meet her before she passed, and she was an incredibly gracious and decent woman. And the thoughts and prayers of the American people are with the people of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth in their grief.
And still to come, I'll look at the many firsts in the life of Queen Elizabeth. Plus, the Queen's grandchildren reflect on her in their own words. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Queen Elizabeth II was a queen of many firsts and has certainly left an indelible mark around the world for decades to come. Let's take a look at the impact the Queen has had spanning generations.
For 7 decades, she made and witnessed history as the head of the royal family. In 2015, she became the longest reigning monarch in British history, outpacing her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, and her 63 years of service on the throne. But Elizabeth II is queen of many other firsts. Her coronation ceremony in 1953, watched by a record 27 million people in the UK alone, was the first to be broadcast on television.
I here present unto you Queen Elizabeth, your undoubted queen.
Those famous royal walkabouts? Her Majesty started the tradition of greeting the public in 1970 during a tour in Sydney. The most traveled of any of her British predecessors, the Queen visited over 100 countries on behalf of the Crown.
The arrival of Queen Elizabeth of England to begin a state visit to West Germany,
including the first state visit to then West Germany in 1965. 21 years later, widely seen as one of her most historic tours, a critical act of diplomacy at the time, she became the first British monarch to visit China in 1986. And the first to address the U.S. Congress in 1991.
Force in the end is sterile. We have gone a better way. Our societies rest on mutual agreement, on contract, and on consensus.
Another historic first came in May of 2011, the first state visit to the Republic of Ireland by a British monarch in 100 years. It was the first time a reigning monarch traveled to the Emerald Isle since its separation from the United Kingdom.
That moment when she came off the aeroplane in Ireland, the Republic, and came down the steps dressed in St. Patrick's blue, and later on lowered her head at the memorial to those who had sought Republican success and who had fought for it. That was significant. And I think the Queen was trying to create an environment for an improvement in relations.
To all those who have suffered as a consequence of our troubled past, I extend my sincere thoughts and deep sympathy. With the benefit of historical hindsight, we can all see things which we would wish had been done differently, or not at all.
Our thanks to Amy Robach for that. Still ahead, as the royal family mourns, we hear from the Queen's grandchildren reflecting on her impact as a monarch and as a grandmother. We'll be right back.
The longest-serving monarch in British history has died. Queen Elizabeth II passing away at Balmoral Castle, her estate in Scotland, where she had been on summer break. The royal family, including her sons Prince Andrew and Prince Edward, rushing to her side, along with her grandsons Prince William and Prince Harry. The 96-year-old's death comes after she canceled a virtual meeting Wednesday. Her doctors, concerned about her health, advising her to rest. She was last seen in public Tuesday when she swore in UK's new Prime Minister, Liz Truss. Born on April 21st, 1926, Her Majesty was never expected to take the throne. That changed in 1936 when her father unexpectedly became King George VI after his older brother's abdication. Her father died in 1952 and the 25-year-old princess became queen. Today marks the end of the second Elizabethan age, the end of an extraordinary reign that spanned 7 decades and so much change.
The Justice Department plans to appeal a Florida judge's order that a special master review materials seized at former President Trump's estate.
While the appeal is heard, the Justice Department asked the judge to reconsider part of her ruling that blocked federal prosecutors from using the material as they build a case. The prosecutors want access to just over 100 classified documents. They said the government and the public are irreparably injured when a criminal investigation of matters involving risks to national security is enjoined.
Weeks after he was convicted of federal charges of contempt of Congress, Steve Bannon appearing in court again, facing state felony charges. The one-time top aide to former President Trump is now charged by New York prosecutors with 2 counts of money laundering, 3 counts of conspiracy, and 1 count of scheming to defraud, tied to his role in the We Build the Wall online fundraising campaign. The crowdfunding campaign raised $25 million to build a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. But prosecutors allege hundreds of thousands went toward personal expenses for Bannon and the other founders.
Thousands of firefighters on the front lines battling multiple fires in the west, pushed by the sweltering heat wave. The deadly Fairview fire in Hemet, California, exploding, crews attacking the flames for the 4th day from both the ground and the sky. And the Mosquito fire near Lake Tahoe, burning buildings to the ground, destroying over 5,000 acres. The fires fueled by bone-dry conditions during a time of record-breaking heat.
There are hopes that a Pacific Hurricane K working its way up the coast could bring cooler, wetter weather this weekend.
In Memphis, police capturing a man they say went on a deadly shooting spree, killing at least 4 people and injuring 3 others. Authorities identifying the suspect in custody as 19-year-old Ezekiel Kelly. The rampage spanning across 8 different crime scenes. The first deadly shooting just before 1 a.m. on Wednesday. Officers responding to the initial homicide but unable to identify a suspect. Then, Wednesday afternoon, police respond to another report of gunshot victims at 4:38 p.m. and 4:40 p.m. Just over an hour later, the suspect going live on Facebook, showing himself allegedly firing a gun, with 2 more shootings at 7:24 p.m. and 8:55 p.m.
A Las Vegas County official now in county jail, charged in connection with the murder of local investigative reporter Jeff Gehrman. Robert Tellis, the Clark County public administrator, arrested Wednesday following a standoff with police. Police say he had self-inflicted stab wounds and was seen here returning home before the arrest wearing a protective white suit. Authorities searching his home for hours Wednesday, towing a maroon GMC Yukon Denali, the same type of car spotted near the murder scene. Police say Gehrman was found dead outside of his home around 10:30 a.m. on Saturday after writing several articles critical of the public administrator's office.
As a nation and the world mourns the loss of an icon, a family mourns the loss of a grandmother. So to help remember the Queen by those who knew her best, here are some of her royal grandchildren in their own words on what made their granny so special. Here's Amy Robach.
Imagine that when you went over the river and through the woods, this was the grandmother's house you went to, Buckingham Palace.
Thinking big about Granny's quite easy because she's this incredibly passionate lady who has sort of transcended every generation. And you know, we're very lucky that not only do we get to think about her as an incredible queen and an incredible leader, but also as an incredible grandmother.
For someone like me, growing up sort of with the Queen as my grandmother, you look back at history and go, you know, has she really done this? Is this really happening? I think the significance comes in the future when you look back and go, this was her reign and this is what happened and how impressive is it?
Despite all the pageantry and glitter, her grandchildren insist that behind palace walls, she was no different than any other grandmother. You can see it here on her 90th birthday, telling William to get his feet on the palace balcony. Great-grandson George called her Gan Gan.
We look up to her like any granddaughter would to their grandmother, with a little bit of added something.
I think it's always, when we're doing family time, we always have fun. There's sort of different dynamics in every family.
William and Harry served in Britain's military. They had to look at their grandmother in another way.
Because of my time in the service, the utmost of respect that I have, not just for as a grandmother. You know, she was my boss for 10 years, and I viewed her very much like that.
But after his military service was over, watch what happened when grandson Harry made a promo video for his charity, the Invictus Games for Wounded Warriors. He got the Obamas to play along and Granny.
Remember when you told us to bring it at the Invictus Games?
Careful what you wish for. Boom.
Prince Harry knew only one response could one-up the White House.
How did you approach your grandmother?
I didn't want to have to ask the Queen because I didn't want to, back her into a corner. But when I showed her the video and I told her, she was like, right, what do we need to do? Let's do this.
Oh, really? Please.
Boom. What goes on behind closed doors in anyone's life, I think, should be private. So she's cut that balance quite well.
There's little moments where we can be just us, very small family, just doing little things like playing cards or whatever we do. And she likes just having her time to do that because it's the time when we all can just kind of hang around together, and it's quite nice.
She taught her granddaughters a British card game called Patience,
which is the most difficult game ever. And I don't have very much patience. So when we play, it's quite funny because she'll sit there for a good hour and a half and I'll sit opposite her and she'll win a fair few times and I'll just be like, we've grown up all our lives going to Balmoral and Sandringham for Christmas, and it's the most incredibly special time for us because we have that time just with her and our family as just ourselves, not with the whole world watching. In Balmoral, where we go in the summer, there are the most incredible wild raspberries all over her estate. So when we were little, we used to go with her and pick the raspberries, and then we used to have the jam at tea.
Just as the Queen supported them, they tried to be there for her.
When the Royal Yacht Britannia was decommissioned in 1997, the happiness, she was incredibly happy travelling on Britannia. And it was a really emotional day for her to sort of be at the decommission ceremony. And I think it was one of the very few times that she's sort of cried in public.
Princesses and princes may live in a different world, but like anyone else, they take their life lessons from their grandparents.
She set an incredible example to me, to others to follow. Her leadership, her duty, her sacrifice, her selflessness, her love of country, I think they really, really shine through.
Her determination, her duty, but also her sense of fun and her love of life. I think that's some things that I'd really like to take with me going forward.
She's taught me to always be true to yourself and to stand up and be strong.
I am who I am, this is what I am, this is what my opinions are, and this is what I believe in, but I'm not going to tell you any more than that. To her, duty and the way she's brought up, it's very, very important. She puts her own personal feelings and her own personal thoughts to one side and goes, what's for the greater good, what's for the country's good, and in some cases, what's for the world's good. And I think regardless of whether she was the Queen or not, I think everyone and anyone who's committed themselves to public life like this or has dedicated themselves to duty, I think they deserve a massive pat on the back and a recognition towards it. That example, if people took just a tiny bit of it away in their own lives, I think the world would be a better place.
Not just Queen, but Granny. From world leaders to well-known celebrities, the tributes are pouring in. And a tweet, Beatles star Paul McCartney said, "God bless Queen Elizabeth II. May she rest in peace Long live the king. And frontman of the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger, tweeted, "For my whole life, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has always been there. In my childhood, I can recall watching her wedding highlights on TV. I remember her as a beautiful young lady to the much-beloved grandmother of the nation. My deepest sympathies are with the royal family." And a simple tweet from Paddington Bear, the one and only, a thank you for everything. And that is our show for tonight. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for full coverage of the life and legacy of Queen Elizabeth II. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Have a great night.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.